Good evening. Welcome to Buffalo, Minnesota, and the workshop of Maple Rock Woodworks. I'm Ed Noy. Come on in, we'll show you my shop. So for you folks who are trying to set up a shop or modify the one you have, one of the things you have to think about is storage. You could spend a lot of time and money building some really neat storage cabinets, or you could remodel your kitchen and take all the cabinets out of your kitchen and put them in your shop, and that's where this came from. Okay, this is just an old kitchen cabinet. I did have to put a back on it because when our house was built, they used really cheap cabinets that had no backs, but we fixed that up. We're woodworkers. So I got a lot of storage in here, sandpaper, miscellaneous tools, and then all my fine measuring equipment is here in this cabinet that I built back in 2010, I think it was. That was the first project I ever entered in the Northern Woods exhibition, and I turned it into a tool chest, and it just got all my fine measuring stuff in it. From there we go around the shop. You can see my rather oversized air compressor. A few years ago I had a job. I had to spray paint some large furniture. My little air compressor just wouldn't do it, so I had to go and get myself an industrial one. Over here in the corner, this is my sharpening station, if you will. So for doing lathe tools, and we'll talk about lathe tools later on, I've got this really nice CBN, cubic boron nitrate wheel. It does a great job, especially on turning tools. And I just got a general grinding wheel. Mostly what it does is lawnmower blades. Over in the corner here, back corner, you probably can't see much. I've got a knockoff Tormek machine. This is the Grizzly version. I use that for if I happen to damage my bench chisels or my hand planes. I use this for roughing them out before I sharpen them up on diamond stones. I do all my work on diamond stones. As you can see, I've got some shop-made bases here, made out of scraps from other woodworking projects. I keep all my stones and sharpening slips for carving tools in there. Move on to the bandsaw. I don't know how I managed for 10 or so years without a bandsaw. This is, if you're starting a shop from scratch, I'd recommend buying one of these rather than a table saw. You can just really do so much on a bandsaw. This is nothing special about it. It's just a standard 14-inch Delta. Here, close to the corner, is a little table under which I store my shop vacuum. It's a real fine machine. And then here you see CNC. This is my first CNC machine. It's in this box. Some of you may have seen it before. I use it for demonstrations, and we'll be going out and helping some Boy Scouts understand CNC machining here in a couple of weeks. I'll show you my other CNC machine in a little while. We move on here to my drill press. I used to have a little old Craftsman press. A few years ago I felt like I could treat myself. I bought this really nice machine from the New Zealanders. It's variable speed. It's got buttons on it. If I want to drill a hole, I tell it what kind of drill I want to use, what size the drill is, and what the material is, and it sets the speed for me. And we go ahead and drill it. It's got a really nice capacity. Matter of fact, it's got so much capacity, I got storage space underneath. And I don't know if you can see that in the video, but under here is where I store my vacuum vacuum machine for sucking vacuum in my vacuum bags. Got a little shop-built cabinet here. These are all my portable power tools, and I just have kept them in their original cases because they just store easily. And then, of course, it's a flat surface, so it's going to catch everything in the shop. In this case, I use it mostly for paints and adhesives, in this case, epoxy. I have some very simple clamp racks up here on the wall, just a 2x4 screwed to the wall. Nothing special. Every once in a while, I tell myself I really ought to make a special rack, because one of the problems is if I have a hard wind and it shocks the building, these clamps will fall off. It's not a big enough deal. Hand screws, I love hand screws. As you can see, I've got all kinds of different sizes. A lot of folks hate them because they can't figure out how to work them. But once you figure that out, they work really, really well. Another example of storage from the kitchen. This side has mostly adhesives in it. This side over here has a bunch of other stuff, some adhesives. It's got some of my, I keep my solvents in quart cans, usually nothing bigger than that. Keep some waxes over here. And I keep this up here to remind me that you always have to have vision, like Uncle Walt did many years ago. I've got a nice little fridge here that my kids gave me for Christmas one year. Mostly it keeps water, and also keeps all my glue in there because it keeps it from experiencing a lot of temperature swings. Miscellaneous hardware things, you know, cabinets I picked up at my favorite store, Menards. Oh, and in here, because I am vertically challenged, I have my homemade stool that's short and long, and when I put furniture up here on my bench, sometimes I can't get to it without my help. Of course, this is my table saw, and maybe we want to move the camera back for this one. Huh? Okay, well, moving around the shop, so this is my table saw. I've had it for a few years. It's a really nice Powermatic. This is the 110 volt version, about 1.5 horses. For 98% of my work, this is sufficient. Every once in a while, I wish I had the 5-horse version of it. If you try to do a long rip, it'll overheat and stop on you. So if I do long rips, I do them on the bandsaw that I showed you earlier. Hiding behind the table saw is my dust collector. This is one of the Harvey horizontal cyclonic dust collectors. They actually call it a dust processor, I think. It works really great. It's very quiet. And the way I use this is I have a 20-foot flex hose that I just move around from machine to machine. And granted, it's not as fast as flipping and open a gate, but I don't have to mess with all the piping in the ceiling. And this has served me very well for quite a few years.
Okay, stop.
All right. So for those of you who are curious about the Harvey, I know a lot of you have probably seen advertisements about it. Here it is, it's the back end of it. It's got a nice handle on it. It's got some really nice casters on it. When it's full, it beeps, and I can even hear it if I've got my machinery running. And all you do is you shut it off. I roll it out, which I won't do right now because it takes quite a bit of space. There's a couple of latches on the side here. The door drops open, the bin rolls out, and all you have to do is bend over and pick up the plastic bags, because I do use plastic bags. And there's a big one for all the heavy chips, and a much smaller one for all the fines. I take it up, I take it outside to my compost pile, I dump it, bring it back in, set it up. Now it does have HEPA filters on the other end. You can see a couple of red knobs over there. On that end, there's a couple of dust ports. You open up one dust port, you take the suction hose, put it on the dust port, crank the machine up, turn the knob, and that cleans the HEPA filter. And then you move it over to the other side, the other dust port, do the same thing. So that's how you keep all your HEPA filters clean. I've been running this for about 4 years now. Haven't had any problem at all with the HEPA filters clogging up, as long as you do routine maintenance. Well, continuing around the shop from the table saw, over here you find the router table. This is a really nice one. I really like this one. It's got a nice solid cast iron top. Down on the bottom, there's a steel box that goes around the router motor. And when you hook up the suction, and what I do, I take my Harvey, pull the hose around here. I've got a little extension so I don't have to move so far. I plug it in here. You not only suck the air from the back here, you can see it's got a hose on the back that sucks through your opening. It also sucks down past your router bit into the box below and evacuates that, and it's a very clean router table to use. Over here you can see a bunch of off-cut sheet goods, and back here you can see what almost looks like a wooden sailboat. It's got so much sawdust on it. If you call in the next 15 minutes, you can buy this for $15.95. Well, you've seen the router table for a little bit. Over here, not very far away, is my 1938 Supermax drum sander. Many of you might know I make a lot of boxes. A lot of them have a lot of fancy veneer work on it. I do make a lot of my own veneer, and this drum sander is just a great tool for that. Cut it to approximate size on the bandsaw and sand it down to thickness on the drum sander. Next to the drum sander is my quote big CNC machine. It's at least 10 times bigger than my little one. It certainly isn't very big. I can do a 17 by 17 piece. I do a little bit of CNC work, mostly things to augment some of my other projects. One of the things I've been doing, I hope many of you have heard about the memory box SIG, and we're making memory boxes for unfortunate families who have children who have passed away from diseases. Anyway, I'm one of the people that make those, and this is a top to one of those memory boxes, and I do all this work here on my CNC machine, all designed in Fusion 360 to get all that 3D work on it. And the CNC machine here is driven from my iPad. It's a nice feature for this particular machine. The machine will communicate wirelessly to the iPad, so I just hook it up through my internet. I have good internet coverage out here in the shop, all the way from the house. And then, I don't know, can you see my... Okay, so in this little circle here, my router table there, table saws here, this is my combination jointer planer. This whole shop has been an evolution over the last 20 years. And this is one of the evolution pieces. I used to have a lunchbox planer and a little 6-inch delta joiner. I was having a little bit of problems with both, decided I needed to fix something. I went out shopping and I found this, this is a jet model jointer planer. It's nice. I get a 12-inch joiner and I got a 12-inch planer underneath. It converts really easily. Now it's planer. And it'll plane 8 inches thick down to 3/16. If I need to go thinner than 3/16, like for veneers, that's where I use the drum sander. Well, over here behind my CNC and my drum sander is some of my storage solutions, and I'll share them with you. Over here against the wall is where I store my lumber. I used to have horizontal lumber storage here, and I got tired of lifting so many boards off to pull the board out on the bottom that I needed. I find that the vertical storage works a lot better. I'd like to go to this kind of storage for my sheet goods, but that sailboat I was telling you about earlier just gets in my way. I got to get rid of it. Next to that, this is a little bin I built for, these are shorts, and I probably have more than I'll ever need, but I do make a lot of boxes, and I come over here frequently and I pull out pieces and build boxes. In front of that, and it looks like I can't get into this rack, but this is on rollers. I just roll it out and get into this rack. What this rack has on it is a lot of jigs. One of the jigs that's on here is the steam box I built many years ago to bend back posts of shaker rocking chairs. And then here in the corner, in this area here, this is my work in process table. Okay, a bunch of this stuff stacked over here. This is for some memory boxes that I'm going to be making. These here are scale models of a project that hopefully you will see at the next Northern Woods exhibition. I got this idea to make a tensegrity table, and I started out with this first model. And, well, no, I'm sorry, that's not the first one. This is the first one. It's really crude. It just had these nice semicircular arches. Then I decided, well, you know, I think elliptical would look better, so that's what these are. And then I decided, well, yeah, that looks pretty decent, but I refined it a little bit further and made something that I think looks a lot sleeker. Right now, I do have a full-scale prototype of this. I've been living with it in the house for about a month, trying to make sure that that's the design that I want. And then behind it, this is a piece I'm working on for a client. They had this old 1930s washstand, and they wanted it to be countertop height. They want to use it as a coffee bar. So they asked me to make it taller and put a drawer in it. So we're working on that. That's the next couple of weeks project. Well, thank you all for coming to visit my shop. I hope you found it interesting and learned a few things about how you might want to set your shop up. I think it's a pretty efficient way for me to operate. Of course, that's for me. And it's not a very pretty shop. I know my wife said to me, "What, you're going to show them the ugly shop of yours?" Well, it's my shop. And I just want to prove to you, you don't have to have a real nice looking shop to make nice furniture. This is a piece I built here in this shop. I took it to the 2024 Northern Woods exhibition, and the judges thought it was good enough to award me an award of excellence. And I appreciated that award. Right now this usually sits in the corner of our living room, and my wife was sad to see me bring it out here today. Thank you and goodbye.
All right. Hello, my name is Mark Ousaka, and I'm here to give you a tour of my tiny workshop. My history is that as a younger man, I worked in a couple of cabinet shops and then wandered off into the realm of technology and managed to keep a wood shop in my home throughout the time, but I've gotten more serious about it since I retired. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. So, the organizing principle that I have for my shop comes from Adam Savage. And his perspective is that a good shop has visual cacophony. I think I can confirm that we have that going on. But the other thing is that first order retrievability. And by that, what he means is that you need to have all of your tools and what you need to do the job at hand anytime you're doing it. And so as we go through the tour, I'm going to point out how I've answered that portion of the equation. So since it's a small shop, I have to keep my stool stowed under the shelf, under the workbench here. But this is my center of where I'm working. So first order retrievability means that everything I need is going to be within hand. So I have my general hand tools, chisels, whatever, when I'm working in this spot. And over here I have more things. So from this spot, I can get my hands on just about anything that I need for benchtop work. Okay? So one of the things I'll point out is that I do some wood carving. So I have my wood carver set up here, and I have dust collection built in for this, which will automatically turn on when I start the carving tool to get the dust collection here. I won't actually hook it up, but when this starts, now it will start doing the dust collection. So that's one of the capabilities that I have right here in this central area. And of course I need to be in the habit of putting everything away, because with this much stuff, it's real easy for it to get overwhelmed on the desktop. So that's what I have going on here. So a little bit more, I have various things. I do a lot of artwork. That's probably the center of my practice here. And one example, this is a benchtop buddy that I turned on the lathe and put together. So small example of some of the work that I have. Most of it's not present here at the house for me to be able to show. But I'll do that. So I have all the different stuff. I have my glues and everything right up here. I have spare sandpaper, etc. up in these spots. So everything is just right at hand when I'm working. You can see over here I have the selection for all the different hand tools, and if you go over there you can see I have my sanders and hand router, palm router set up to go. And just keep moving around here. Obviously I've got a little bit of desk storage here for various things. Organization is real key in a small shop, and making sure, for me, one of the challenges is making sure that I put things back when I'm done with them. So again, the sanding stuff is right here. I have mats that I can put out to put my stuff on so that it doesn't fly around all over the place. And again, just right here, right at hand. And a couple different sanders that I have here. And as we go around, that's kind of what I have here. Obviously, I have area lighting for the desktop or the bench top. And as I come over here, we'll come to the miter saw. So the miter saw is in a corner. Everything in this shop is on wheels. So all the configuration here is completely changeable, and in order to do certain operations, I will do that. If it's a shortcut on the miter saw, I can just do it here. If it's longer, I can push this out of the way and pull the miter saw out however I need it to be able to get to everything that's here. So when I switch to using the miter saw, because I have it right here by my dust extractor, I can connect this dust extractor up into the saw, and then I have my dust collection system here, the big dust collection system. These are both used when I'm using this saw. And so I'm going to pull this out, wheels locked, so everything can be safe while it's over there. Pull this out just a little bit. And you can see I've got the dust collection coming out of this side into the main dust collection system. And the Festool, of course, automatically turns on. So I'll turn my dust collector on. And then when I put something, we don't need to keep hearing that. But since my shop is so configurable, let that sound recede a little bit. Since my shop is so configurable, I never know which is going to be the closest place for the dust collection to be hooked up. And so I have a port on this side where the dust collection is connected. But I also have the same thing on this other side. So I can switch it back and forth depending on where I'm going to be. And this doesn't get moved very much these days, but in any event, I don't need to pull that out. That hose connection can be on either side of this machine. So another way to make it real easily configurable. When I'm at the miter saw, there's stuff that I'm going to need, like clamps and clamping blocks, etc. So I have a drawer here to put them in. I have my push stick to hold things in place. You always want to be making straight lines. So I make sure that for that first order retrievability, that all of the stuff is in the area that I'm going to be using it. Okay? So, we've just concluded the miter station. What we have here is a conglomeration of a bunch of tools. I'm going to start at the bottom on this one. Once again, I have the locking wheels so that I can move it around anywhere I need to. You see these air filters. This is my air cleaning system. And that's in there tight enough that I don't want to pull it out. But there's a fan in there that blows out through this end, actually the other end, which does a really good job. This is a design that I pulled off the internet. I don't even remember who talked about it. But so here, the bandsaw and the drill press are connected to this workbench. The scroll saw is not, so I can move it around, but I can use it here by just pulling it out and pulling up my chair and sitting down here and doing some work. Okay, so you can see the desk configuration here is very convoluted, but it's pretty effective. So that allows me to be able to use dust collection on everything that's here. And there's not power on these insulated walls that I have here, so I have extension cords to connect things into the main power to be able to move around. And this cord's got some length to it, so I can move it around without disconnecting it very much. So there's that. And now coming around here to the drill press side of it. Again, for first order retrievability, drill presses have a lot of things that need to be connected to them, right? So I have built drawers. This is a tiny space, so I don't have much room. So what I've done is I've actually created a cutout in this drawer for the pillar of the drill to be able to wrap around so I can close this, but I have all my different drill bits here and whatever I need right here. So first order retrievability, it's all right here. And a couple of drawers down here for additional stuff. And it works really well. So I have an enormous amount of storage in a small space. But I'm sure that somebody's saying, yeah, but you've limited your drill press to only this short distance. And that's true the way it's configured. I'm not going to take this off and show you, but there are knobs underneath here, 2 screws that hold this cabinet in place. And so in the event that I need a greater distance here, which is not uncommon, I can simply take this off and put it over on the workbench, or I have some storage that I'll be pointing out later. So that gives me a lot more flexibility and allows me to use the maximum depth available from this particular drill press. We live in Minnesota. That means having a wide open door to an uninsulated garage is not a great idea. So this particular wall here, this hasn't been closed. Sorry about that, I didn't do a test run on that. So this closes up. So in the wintertime, I don't know what's in the way. It doesn't matter. I close this, when the weather gets cold. And I have just one of those oil heater, radiator looking kinds of things. That will keep this warm enough down below 0. So it's very well insulated. The ceiling and sheetrock walls all are insulated. This is just a foam core insulation. It's very effective. I actually use 2 of the heaters just for redundancy. I put them on different circuits. There's 3 circuits that come into this area, so I have redundancy there. But all summer long I enjoy the possibility of using extra space out here, and there's a couple of things out in that part of the world that I'll show you as well. So just quick want to point out, this is something that, where do you put your track slots components? They take up a lot of room. Well, I hang them here. And the tracks, and then the track saw itself is up on the shelf over there. We don't need to point that out. You can trust me that it exists. So a couple of magnetic bars. I have all kinds of small little doodads that I work with and various sculptures that I'm making, so I have them in here. Shop apron, jacket for when it's cold. This all stays here year round, so it's just right, straightforward, easy to get into. So coming back into this area, I have 3 drops on my dust collection system. So I have one that's over on this side, one in the middle, and then one over in that corner that you've already seen. And over here, I have a storage place that's just big enough for me to have my jointer here. So when I need to joint something small, I can joint up to 20 inches here. And it's very convenient, but this open bay here is part of my strategy for the ultimate flexibility, and I'll talk about that when we get over to talk about the assembly table, which is currently fully loaded with tools, which is another part of it. When I'm doing my hand carving, all my hand carving stuff, I keep in a separate spot over here. I've got my low-speed grinder to tune up all my chisels and whatnot, and obviously a lot of chaos and storage for stuff, which I think every shop has some place like this, right? So then we get to the assembly table. This assembly table, I don't have it configured this way typically when I'm working with it, because I need the assembly table part, right? But I wanted to demonstrate all of these things, the router table and the lathe and the joiner, all fit in this space right over here. And so I can put all of them away and then have a free assembly table to be able to work with for whatever operation I want to have. So again, for my fascination with first order retrievability, where do you put your bits? You have them built in little tiny shelves next to where they're actually going to get used. And then I have some box joint templates that are also right here. once again, I have this funky little shelf with a cutout in the middle because the dust collection system goes out the bottom. This is a Jonathan Katz-Moses design that I've modified a little bit. But this gives me all the stuff that I need here. My feeders and whatnot are all here readily available. Makes it a lot easier for me to be able to work when I'm not searching around for different tools and equipment bits, etc. Similar thing with the lathe here is that I have all my lathe tools down here. So if I want to, of course it's jumbled up, so I have some of these. I have some bigger ones. These all stay right here. The only place I use the lathe is on the assembly table. There isn't really another place for me to have it set up. So anytime I use this, I have to pull it out and have it on here. I build a lot of jigs. I'm sometimes more fascinated with jigs, I think, than with the rest of the woodworking. This is a bending jig. I'm not going to pull it out and assemble the whole thing, but all these different holes allow me to have different curves that I bend in various materials. I do a lot of work with brass and copper rod. So it's another part of the configuration. I have two ways to get to this. This shelf goes out, this comes out further. I am in the process of setting up steam bending and vacuum pressing as well. So I have a vacuum press down here that I got from a friend of mine. That's not up and running yet, but for steam bending, I do have a steam bending chamber over here, which I pull out when I need it. Obviously the steam gets connected there. I've got my thermometer to understand what it is. It opens up on the other end. Not really any point bringing that out. But there's a lot of stuff packed into this space. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So come over in this direction. You can see some of the rod, the metal rod that I have, aluminum, brass, copper up there. For the longer pieces, I have shorter pieces up against this wall. You can't ever have too many clamps, right? Said every woodworker ever. So that's all there, and this is located here. Now everything on this wall and some of the stuff over above the bench is all on French cleat system. So I can move this around any way that I want. Even the bins are in a collection of 12 on a single panel that's on a French cleat. So I can shift the panel around to the different spots where I need to have it right at hand when I'm doing some work. Okay. The assembly table, I'm not going to pull it out, but it's got dog holes all over the place. And so when I'm actually using these tools, I fasten them down through the dog holes and clamps, etc. So I'm sure that I have the tools connected and they're not going to slide while I'm doing some operation. I try to focus on safety. I'm an old man, I don't need to hurt myself. All right, so why don't we take a break?
Okay.
All right, so here we are at the table saw. Obviously, the big table saw that we all love doesn't fit in this shop. But I have this one here, and once again, this is on wheels, locking wheels so that I can set it down. But also, when I'm working on things, everything is right here for the operations that I need to do, right? So, in order to keep it straightforward, when I'm changing things out like this has a place that's very close. Pull out my riving knife, put it in, this fits down here. It's all connected by magnets, so I don't have to screw around with, Velcro or switches or whatever. Put it in, and now I'm ready for my next operation. Okay? But sometimes you need to change your blade. So, I have blade changing down here. Feather boards, whatever, things that are required in order to operate the table saw. Push sticks, it's all in here. Over on the other side, we don't need to look at it. I have a miter gauge that comes out, but again, that stores quite comfortably over on the other side here. More switches, or more drawers here. My favorite thin rip jig. So the way this jig works is, instead of moving the fence like a lot of the thin rip jigs that you see, this remains stationary. So when I hook it up here, put my piece of wood underneath here and put it through, and I'm not changing any of the reference points. The blade doesn't change position, the fence doesn't change position, the wood just moves into it. So the challenge that I've had with some of the ones that have those fancy, screw fine-tuned adjustments, you adjust this one and then the reference points never change. So this is a really good way for me to be able to reliably do thin rips, and I have a number of these for different sizes, etc. All the goodies that people tend to have in their shop. Of course, now I can't get that in there, but such is life. More drawers over on the other side, and this side typically faces the router, so I have all kinds of various router equipment, because routers take over the world when they get into your life. And again, I have the dust collection here, and this connects into the center one, and I use these mag switch, or that's not mag switch, I don't know what they call them, this is a Woodcraft product, and it makes it very easy to switch back and forth between different machines, so I like those a lot. So this is good to go. I'm going to just push this back in place. I rarely use it in this exact position unless I'm cutting something very short, which occasionally happens. Again, it's just more efficient to not pull it out, what have you. I pointed out the wheels down here. Again, they're locking, so I drop this down before I use it to make sure that it doesn't move around. One last thing that we didn't cover when we were over here is down on the bottom, I do have a thickness planer. And that thickness planer, if you come a little bit further, you can see it down there. You can see it peeking out. That's enough. Everybody watching this video can recognize what that is. But the wheels are actually a critical component of that, because this shop is 10 feet wide this way, or 10 or 11 feet this way, and it's 14 feet this way. So how am I going to plane a 10-foot board in the winter when the door is closed, so I can't go out into the rest of the garage to do it? I put the planer down on this end with the wood feeding in here, and when the wood runs through the planer, it hits the wall back here, and the planer itself rolls across the floor. So just another idea for when you're in a tiny shop, you have to be pretty creative. And that's what I'm getting at. So as I'm moving things around here, what may not be picked up on the camera is that I have these mats on the floor. These are anti-fatigue mats, and I just shuffle them around to be in the place in front of the equipment that I'm using, at whatever point that is. But so over here, we started getting this up, but we did not quite get to the bandsaw. So here's the bandsaw. I have a love-hate relationship with the bandsaw. It's a reasonable machine, but it's a little more fiddly to tune and connect, which, I don't know. It's a nice enough machine. We'll just leave it at that. But so this is here, and it's right here. I have various jigs for this. I have jigs for resawing. Obviously, I don't have much capacity, but for smaller boards, or smaller logs, I can put them through here, and or cut cookies off the end of them. I have 2 different jigs for that, and I also have a circle cutting jig, so I can cut circles of pretty reasonable size. Right, I've got a 10-inch here, so I can get just under 20-inch circle out of this, which is pretty effective. And all of the tools have their own area light on it. This is just a little, it's called a sewing machine light. I buy 6-packs of them on Amazon, and that's it. Dust collection comes out the back, and I have this component, which I switch back and forth between the bandsaw and the drill press. So this is going to suck the dust out of it. This is permanently connected to the bandsaw at this point. I haven't totally cracked the nut on the best way to collect dust off of this conglomeration of machines. But fortunately, I'm going to be moving to a bigger shop in a few months. So the next spot that I'm coming to, this space is around 120 square feet. And I'm moving to a space that's 280 square feet. So a significant increase in size, and I'm looking forward to that. So this is actually the last hurrah for this shop, because as soon as Dan walks out the door here, this is going to start to get torn apart and packed up for the next destination. But it's been a great shop.
How long? How many years?
I built this garage in 2020 and have been amassing equipment since then. So that's the 6 years. We've been in this house for 9 years, and initially I had the small collection of tools that I had at that point were down in the basement. Some were out in the garage. Kept the table saw out here. So it was a split shop configuration, which is even less desirable than a tiny shop like this one. So the new place is, we don't have a closing date. It's complicated, but we are going to be moving into that within the next couple of months. So I'm really looking forward to having that extra space, and I'll be building that out from scratch, so it'll be pretty customized to what I'm trying to do, including soundproofing to make sure I don't annoy my housemates.
And would that be in a garage or?
No, it's in the basement.
Okay.
It's in the basement. Actually, it's not a basement. It's a 2-level house, and it's the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't a traditional basement. That'll be good. That will be obviously a whole lot more room. And my wife and I are both artists, and so there's 2 spaces side by side of the same size. So one side, the 260 or 80 or whatever square feet it is, will be dedicated to the wood shop. But then there's the same size space on the other side that will be studio space for painting and collage and drawing and all the kind of stuff we have for that.
Okay.
So, as far as where I get my tools, I buy them where I find them cheapest. But also, it's important to me, I'm relatively new to some of the operations that I'm doing here. I had experience 40 years ago in the cabinet shops, but the equipment has changed considerably since then, and of course I'm not buying commercial equipment. So I buy a lot of stuff at Woodcraft. Occasionally I'll buy things at Rockler, but I find that the Woodcraft staff is far more knowledgeable and helpful, and so that's my shameless plug for them. They've been quite helpful in configuring the shop and guiding me in my tool purchases. But I believe in spreading my money around. This bandsaw I got at Menards because they had it on sale for whatever reason, and so I'm not necessarily committed to any particular individual source. But as far as a favorite tool, it's really hard to say because it depends on what I'm working on. I picked up the lathe a few months back, and that instantly became my favorite tool. Lathe work was what I did primarily when I was working in the cabinet shops. Is that nobody else liked turning the legs for the pool table factory, and so I turned a whole lot of legs for pool tables, and so I'd probably put that as my favorite at this point. Although I do find that I use the drill press probably on every single project, and I'm thinking that's the only power tool that I use on everything. But I'm a very diverse kind of guy, and whatever tool is going to suit the need is the tool that I'm going to be using at that point. So, every small shop has a challenge trying to figure out how to store sheet goods. So, this is my solution. Works really, really well. Got it from YouTube. I should credit somebody, but I have no idea who that would be. This has got more capacity than I need. The pink blocks that I have here I use with the track saw. Put that underneath, so I have the backing side. A couple different sizes. This is full 8 foot, and that's obviously wider. So, and this just gets out of the way so we can park. We do keep 2 vehicles in this garage.
My name is Henry Montag, and I'm a hobbyist woodworker. I don't do anything professional. got into woodworking out of necessity. Being not a wealthy person, I became a do-it-yourselfer, and that meant installing my own kitchens and making cabinets at certain point for different projects. And this is the third set of workshop cabinets that I've made for different houses I've lived in. And I enjoy woodworking because it's something to keep me out of trouble, and I like the finished products when I'm done. Usually learn something with every project I make. And a little bit about me. I grew up in Iowa. We lived in Iowa for 40 years or 45 years of our married life, and moved up to Minnesota upon retirement, be closer to our kids. And we bought this house because it had an unfinished basement, and I could kind of design the wood shop the way I wanted it. If I were to do it over again, I might put in a separate finishing room right off the wood shop. But we always, have woulda, coulda, shouldas. Some of the things about my woodworking, the one thing I wish I would have bought a lot sooner in my woodworking life is my drum sander. It's probably one of the best additions to my shop. And it's got a learning curve, how to use it and when to use it, how much bite to take all the time. And as you look around my shop, you can see I have a dust collector. I think that's an essential item in an active wood shop to help contain the dust. And I had a physician say there's two elements. You have to have the dust collector, and you have to have air filtration. So clean air is vitally important. And then the other thing that's important, you can see I have headphones as soon as I walk in the shop. I've got 3 sets for all my workshop helpers. One of the good parts is one of my sets has Bluetooth, so I can answer my phone, or at least know I'm getting a phone call. This is I call it a planing table. These are 20 millimeter stainless steel rails that it slides on. The carriage also is 20 millimeter. I can drop my router in here. The one thing I'm going to change is put a router lift on my plate here to make adjustment a lot easier. And then the other idea that I have seen is to use this style rail here so that my carriage can go the full width, and so I can get probably 6 or 8 inch wider board in here if I have a wider slab. I've only done a couple of projects on this table, but still working out the kinks. I found that I don't like the plunge router base, but that's the only one that I want to give up in my shop. I've one of these people that have, I think I've got 5 routers in my shop right now. And that may be overkill, but I've got 2 router tables. I've got the planing table, and it seems like everything gets utilized. And underneath my planing table, I've added storage for my pipe clamps. And here are brackets that hold them, and I can put those on my table, my outfeed table, and prop up my pipe clamps, keep them in place, and it works amazingly well. On my outfeed table, when I do glue ups, I cover it with cardboard, so the cleanup's pretty easy. And the only thing is, I didn't leave quite enough space between my 2 layers here to get the clamps in and out conveniently. I should have added an extra inch in there, but that'll probably get changed down the road. This is my cutoff saw that I have on a portable stand, and I added this dust box because the dust chute on the back of the saw broke at about year 6, and a replacement part was not available, so it kind of ticked me off. But I added that to try and contain dust. It hooks into my dust collector. I like the Delta because it's so accurate on its miter stops, and when I do a lot of trim work, I can do those returns on a hook strip and be spot on. And so I don't want to upgrade to one with better dust system because I like the accuracy of this one. The next tool here is my drum sander. Maybe my only regret is it could have been a little wider, but it's been a beautiful tool for me. I've had it about a year now, and it's the one tool I wished I would have bought earlier in my woodworking career. The next tool is one of my router tables. I've got it so that I have good access to my router. It hooks into the dust collector top and bottom, and it contains the dust. And then underneath is storage for router bits. And on the wall behind me is my peanut butter jar collection with different labels on them. It helps me organize all my bolts and screws and some miscellaneous parts. If you can't see what you've got, it's easy to not remember that you have it. And so when I want an 1¼ inch screw or 2-inch screw, I can look and see what my options are. And that's been kind of a fun thing to figure out how to organize. And my goal was to put doors on there, but it's much easier to just see what you have without trying to hide it behind a door. So this is a jet joiner. I have installed the helical cutter on this as well. Great addition. I'm not sure what age the joiner is. I inherited it from my father-in-law, and I know he bought it new. Probably about 1990 would be my guess. I've added the enclosure for the stand to help contain some of the dust and debris. But if you don't have a joiner, you probably need one. This is my table saw. It's a saw stop cabinet maker saw with the 52-inch fence. I built the outfeed table behind it, and the beautiful part is I can handle a sheet of plywood by myself. If I need to cut it or rip it, it works amazingly well to have this larger outfeed table, and then it becomes my primary work table when I'm not sawing. This is my garbage box. It fits underneath. But I love the saw stop. I've never discharged a cartridge, but I'm happy knowing that my fingers are safe if something goes wrong. Well, some of my projects are cutting boards, and one of my sons, in fact, this afternoon we're going to measure for cabinets for his garage. So get our material list, and those will be built in the shop here and taken out to his garage.
Hello, my name is John Trojan. Welcome to my shop. My wife and I moved from a condo in Edina in 2006 to this property, which is in Elko, Newmarket, for two reasons. One, she was a farm girl and wanted to get back to a rural environment. And two, my lifelong dream has always been to build my own shop from scratch. So in 2013 we moved here, and in 2014 I was able to construct the shop that you eventually will see here. Jay wanted me to talk a little bit about the construction technique. I did quite a bit of research. I wanted the shop to be really energy efficient, and so I did some research and settled on a technique that I believe was called USA New Walls. And it was adopted from technology that came out of Sweden. So they were very good at developing construction techniques for cold weather environments, and so I elected to do that. And really, it's just basically a wall in a wall. So I should say that I had the foundation done, I had the framing done, and then I did all of the rest of the construction. So it's you build 2x6 walls, you fill them with rock wool, and then you vapor bury over the whole thing, so you've got a completely enclosed environment. There are no holes, there's no punctures. And then you run your electrical inside that, and then you do another 2x wall on the outside of that, and then fill that with insulation, and then do the cladding on the inside, which was OSB. So again, in 2014, I built the shop. I basically filled it with new equipment, which my wife was kind enough to allow me to do that. And so as you'll see, it's really exactly the type of shop that I wanted when I originally went out to build this thing. Again, welcome to the shop. Jay wanted me to talk a little bit about the thought process that went into, how it came to be what you're seeing today. Once I built the shop itself, well, let me back up just a second. Before I actually even built the shop, I spent a lot of time on diagramming out exactly where the electrical would go. Necessary because some of it is in the floor, so it's buried in the concrete, and we need to know where those outlets would be for positioning the equipment. So I on paper, laid out where all the machinery would go, so I'd know where to put the electrical. Similarly, all the way around the entire shop, I tried to, using the diagram, determine as best I can where to put the outlets. I don't think you can have too many. As it turns out, I didn't have enough. I did run out of 220. I ended up repurposing the 220 outlet for the air conditioning because I ended up getting a lathe just a couple of years ago, and I had no power for it, so I used the air conditioning power. Turns out this place doesn't actually need air conditioning. The insulation and the overhanging of the trees keeps it about 73, 74 degrees even on the hottest day. So, as I said, the electrical is run horizontally across and around the entire shop. I don't know if you want me to walk around. And so, in terms of layout, these three pieces of equipment pretty much they're in the center of the room, and I made or provided for in-floor outlets for those three. I should have had significantly more because it really limits me in terms of where I can move at least these pieces of equipment. Anything it's on the sides, I can move around a little bit because I do have quite a few 220 outlets, but for the most part, this is kind of fixed. Similarly, this is the only wall in the shop that doesn't have windows on it, so this is pretty much where the chop saw had to go. And then the configuration of the ductwork, really required that this was about the only place that was left for me to put the dust collector. What else? A little bit about the machinery itself. I wanted to start with the saw stop for obvious reasons. Love my saw stop. And I did get the sliding table, which is worth every penny. For those who want to know, it's extremely precise. I use it a lot. I am kind of a Powermatic guy, I guess. I've always had good luck with that. The bandsaw is a Laguna. Bought that because of the reviews, basically. I think it's a little undersized. If I had to do it again, I'd get something a little larger. The chop saw is a Bosch. It's not on rails, which if I had to do that again, I would make sure that I could do it and do it on rails because it's too tight. So I'm hoping to upgrade that in the near future. What else? This is a relatively new ad. I got this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I actually use that quite a bit. And as I mentioned, the Powermatic lathe I got just about a year and a half ago. I am not a lathe person, so I have a whole new thing that I need to learn about. So that'll be fun. This is I have a sharpening station here. I got the lathe about a year and a half ago. Picked it up on the Thanksgiving sale. I think maybe 2 years ago now. I am not a lathe person. That's a new area of woodworking that I need to learn about, but I do look forward to working on that this fall. This is my sharpening station. I am it's a kind of a Tormek guy. I've got a lot of Tormek jigs. I absolutely love it. I'm good enough now, particularly on the things my wife wants sharpened. I can do a knife in maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and it is amazingly sharp. And just in general, a comment, all of the furniture you see in here, I built. So I actually kind of adopted the Smart Carts article from Fine Woodworking in terms of being able to move some of the stuff around on wheels. So this is on wheels, and the drill press cabinet is on wheels. What was I going to say about that? So I did build, I built the outfeed table. The first thing I ever built was the assembly table. I used that for a couple of years before I was able to complete a lot of this work. I did build a Rubo workbench, maybe 8 years ago. Yeah, so anything you see in here, I built. There are 35 drawers and 7 cupboards. There's, because of the windows, there isn't a lot of wall space for hanging, cabinetry for chisels and planes and things like that. So almost all of my hand tools and hardware are located in drawers. That's why there's every time I build a cabinet, I put drawers in it for that reason. In the corners, the compressor. Again, one of the first tools I bought. I do spray almost all of my woodworking, and I can show you the spray room in a second. So I use that for that. And over there, is the stuff you see everywhere. Location for panel sheet goods, lumber rack, clamps. Over on the right here, in the rolling cabinet with the red pullouts are all my nuts, bolts, screws, all of that stuff. So it can hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, about 18 of those. Also, I think I pulled that out of a Fine Woodworking magazine article as well. But that's a real handy way for me to keep things consolidated, and I know where everything's at. This is the last stop. This is the finishing room, which, as I was telling Jay, was an afterthought in terms of the size of the shop. I added an additional 8 feet, basically during construction. So, as I mentioned, I spray pretty much all of my projects. So what you're looking at is the filters in front of a bell mouth. So there is an article in Fine Woodworking on how to build a bell mouth. It's about 2 feet in diameter, run by a half-horse motor on a 220 circuit. And I turn it on, but it's super loud. But it'll clear the shop in just a couple of minutes. I mean, it's so powerful that it just whips the air through here. And I have to be very careful when I run it in the winter, because it drops the temperature of the shop so fast. It'll go from 62 down to 45 in minutes. So I have a propane heater that I fire up to get the temperature back up to normal temperature. And just as an aside, in case you're wondering, the heating is in-floor heating, and I use a Takagi boiler to heat the liquid in the tubes in the floor, and it's 50% water and 50% glycol.
All right, my name is Brad Hopke, and this is my workshop. It's the second one I've had. I used to live in another home 25 years ago where I just had a single car garage. I moved into this area, which I thought was spacious, till I filled it up. And now I wished I had more room yet, and who doesn't? We're just going to do a roundabout on the shop. Starting over here, one of the really good tools to have in a workshop is a computer. I use SketchUp so I can have my drawings on there instead of having to print everything out. If I'm looking up something, whatnot, it's pretty valuable to have that. And that's a nice tool to have. And as you're looking up, storage, again, is another issue for everybody. I keep on trying to find more nooks and crannies. As we go around the shop, you can see I've got stuff stuffed. Any place there's a blank wall or an open area, I've got storage. Going down low, starting with some of the tools I've got a Delta DJ20. Probably had that been doing woodworking for 40 years, and that's getting pretty close to being that old. I upgraded it and put a helical head on there, which really made a big difference for doing, especially if you get into figured woods, maples or exotics or whatnot. It really, really does a nice job where you don't get the chip out or the blowout of it. Coming around here, I upgraded. I used to have a 10-inch Makita compound miter saw. I upgraded to a 12. That's a nice saw. The only downside to that is if I go to work at somebody else's house, it's such a beast to haul around. I ended up keeping the 10-inch so that I can haul that to different job sites. So that is a stationary one. It doesn't move. Underneath is my sentimental baby. This is just a chop saw. That is 40 plus years old. That's all I had for a long time before they even came out with compound miter ones. I have no idea how many boards that sawed up, but it's a pile of them. And I have a scroll saw here if I need that. I do marquetry stuff, so I have a better scroll saw in another shop, which you'll see. But this one is just in case I need something out here. Moving along, again, you see more storage, high and low. Underneath here, I've got one tool I bought that's very nice, especially if I'm working at somebody else's house. In lieu of hauling a table saw around or a small portable one, I bought a Festool track saw. They're expensive, but it's an extremely nice tool. Very accurate cuts. If you get it with the tracks that come, it's just super simple to lay down, make your cut, no mistakes. I would recommend that. And I was using this on a job and it blew up on me for whatever reason. It was over 3 years old. I thought I'd end up paying for repair. I sent it to Festool. I thought I could fix it myself. Found I couldn't get it apart. Just hung my head in shame. Put all the various parts in plastic bags, sent it off to Festool expecting the worst. They repaired it for free, sent it back. I was amazed. So Festool, very good company. Got sander, belt sander, whatnot. Another big tool. In my other shop, I didn't have very good dust collection. So I'd come out covered in dust. You're breathing that stuff in, you're sneezing, wheezing, which we all know is not good for you. So when I built this shop, I got the Oneida dust collector. It's a big 3-horse or 5 horsepower one. So it draws all the hunks and stuff from my various tools. It does a good job. I also added, which you can't see, is above, I've got a jet air filtration system on the ceiling. But once I bought Festool sander with a mini vacuum, that takes care of all my dust issues. So I don't even use that overhead dust collector anymore. That takes care of everything. And again, Festool is just a wonderful tool with that mini dust collector. The sanders are bulletproof. I don't know how many times I've set them on benches, knocked them off. They hit the concrete floor, they bounce once, and they're fine. Nothing, I've never broken one yet. So coming around, another thing, an upgrade that I did was expensive, but I used to have a Sears or something, 5 horsepower air compressor, noisy, rattle along, single stage, was just terrible. You almost had to have your ear plugs or whatever on all the time running it. One of my friends talked me into spending the bigger money. This is a Caster air compressor, and it's a big industrial one, 2-cylinder, 2-stage, fairly quiet, and it keeps up with any power tool you can hook up to it. I don't know what the CFM is, but it's a lot. So I can hook up sanders, grinders, whatever to it, and it works great. Continuing around, I went with Grizzly for the price point. They're not the highest quality. They do have some issues. They work, but I have encountered issues. I got the, what's that, spindle sander. And I also bought the planer, surfacer, whatever you want to call it. And that also had a helical head on there, which again, if you're doing any maples, figured woods, whatever, that helical head just does an outstanding job. And I have had some problems with this, which I was able to fix, but it was kind of above. I've got access to people that can do different things. And if I didn't have that, the machine would have been junk, but I was able to fix it. It's kind of a poor quality on Grizzly's part. That, and I've encountered problems with this as well. So and I also bought the Grizzly lathe. I had a Delta, the real small, lighter one, and it would shake and shimmy if you're trying to turn something big. So that caused me a lot of problems. I went with this one, and this is just a beast. Just trying to lift these legs upright. They're all cast iron. This is cast iron. It's a beast. So you move it someplace and it stays. It's stable, stationary. And there are some adjustment problems with that, which I've overcome. But again, their quality is, you're paying for what you get. And you can see above, I did storage also for some of the wood that I got. The stuff grows. Gotta keep culling it, because I think that it makes new boards when you're not looking up there. So it keeps on getting more and more. So I have to have inventory reduction sales. Getting to the middle of the shop, I used to have a Delta table saw, and that turned to a pumpkin after 30 years, 40 years of use. And I heard a lot of people getting the saw stop, and it is a wonderful tool. They're expensive, but the quality is incredible. You take it out of the crate, the instructions on how to set it up, how to adjust everything. I've never seen anything so good. They've got pictures. Instead of handing you a box full of parts, they got little packets that tell you this part goes to here, this part goes to there. It's great. Whoever thought that up, they have kudos from me. It's just an outstanding saw. The accuracy of it, the dust collection, all of it is great. Let's see, turning around. Obviously you need heat, have to have heat for the shop. And this is one that draws outside air, combustible air and exhaust, so I don't have to worry about blowing myself up from dust or fumes or whatnot. Kind of something important in a workshop. And getting over to this wall. This is the tools that I use a lot that I wanted to have accessible, so I'm not digging things out. I'm fixing lawnmowers in here and cars and everything else in here too. All right, and looking at my wall of tools here, and as I said before, I'll work on cars in here, lawnmowers, chainsaws, everything. So it's not only woodworking, but whatever else I have to fix, this is the workshop to come out and take care of what I need to do. Also, when I do build, primarily I like doing furniture is my favorite thing to do, because I can incorporate, if I'm doing carving or marquetry or whatever into it, I like that's my favorite thing to do. And then for finishing it, I always struggled with that. and I bought Air Pro sprayer, and that is taken care of. I can spray shellac, paint, lacquers, whatever. I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman that I took a class from at work at the Dakota County VOTEC. If I think of it, we'll put it in there. The guy is incredible for his knowledge. I took a class out at that VOTEC, and one of the most important things I learned from him is shellac is your friend. I never knew anything about shellac. He taught me so much that you can do with dyes and tints, and it was just an invaluable course that I took out there. Coming around a little bit farther here, we get into router table. Everything I seen that you could buy just looked like junk to me. I didn't like them. I seen this one in a woodworking magazine, so I built this and made it such that I could collect dust and whatnot on there. So the router just goes in the bottom there, adjust it from the bottom. And then also when you're doing, if anybody's run stuff on here, if you're doing primarily cherry, maple, any of that small pieces, if you're routering, you stop, you get a burn mark. And you keep getting those as you're doing that. I bought a power feeder, and it's wonderful that you can just set it and it'll just run your stock through at a steady pace, and it keeps your fingers away from the fast spinny things that likes to eat fingers. So another really, really nice tool there. It was expensive for it, but it's paid for itself. As I'm running stock, you can just sit and feed it through, and you don't have to worry about your digits. And then other tools behind here, I've got the Delta drill press. I've had that for 40 plus years as well. That's something I might like to upgrade at some point in time, because they've got the heads that tilt or move, or possibly get a mill would be even better, where I could do mill work. Again, I'm limited for space. That's a big machine, so I don't know what I want to do with that. And I've got the big 18-inch jet bandsaw, which is another very nice machine, very stable. I had a smaller one. The belts would come off or blades would come off all the time. And this just does a very, very nice job. And then you get into the corner with clamps. You can never have enough clamps, as you can see. Another thing that I built is a work table. And this is like a torsion, if that's the correct terminology. There's a piece of 3/4 inch plywood on the bottom, piece of 3/4 plywood on top, and then I've got ribs running through both ways so that that stays flat and doesn't twist, doesn't have bows in there. As I was building it, I had a large straight edge so I could make sure that this was perfectly flat in any direction. So if you're building a sub-assembly on there, it's the last thing you want to have is a big dip or a bow or something in there, and you pull that off, and now your piece you thought was perfect, you set it on a flat surface and it rocks or is not the way that you intended it on being. One of the other tools when we talked to previously was about the Festool sander. These are wonderful. This is just the mini dust collector. I've got multiple sanders for it. As you can see, they're just robust. I don't know how many times you've been sitting on the edge, fall on the concrete floor, pick them up, and they're fine. This collects the dust, 99.9% of the dust it absorbs, so you're not breathing any of that. It's an invaluable tool for anybody that does woodworking stuff. Again, they're expensive, but they do a nice job sanding, and dust collecting is outstanding. And another thing that I made for my workshop, I used to store all my plywood and scraps and whatnot behind the lathe. Well, anytime I wanted to get at something, it was buried in the back, hard to find. You just didn't look. You ended up buying the same thing that you already had. So I built this cart, and the cart does a couple of things. I can separate the large sheets, which I put on the outside. And also, if I get stock, I can open up my garage door, back my truck up, and just put the stock right on the cart. And it's just out of the way. I can move it around as needed. It's not piled against something and in my way. They also constructed it that all the little cutoffs and scraps and whatnot, I got little cubbies where I can stuff it in there because, you know, sure enough, you need a little piece of this or something like that that I wanted to throw on the floor. But you've got them versus they're stuck someplace where you can't find them when you need a little scrap. So the cart works very nice. On the cement floor, I've got metal caster wheels, so it rolls around real good. Just an idea for people if you're looking for storage. It works wonderful. The top, when I don't have it piled full of stuff like this, if I get lumber, I can stack that on top as well, so it's out of my way when I'm doing projects. So basically, I like doing furniture, woodworking. This entire room and the kitchen is all stuff that I've done. I did the kitchen cabinets. We'll talk about this later. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see the cutting board from where you're at. But I wanted something different that you're not going to see at anybody else's house. So I did this design and have everything end grain for a chopping board. We've been using this for 10 years, and you can see that it's stood up the test of time very well. One of the other projects I took on, which was extremely difficult for my skill level, but I was able to somehow figure it out, was doing these steps. And I wanted to do wainscoting on the wall going up, which had all kinds of crazy angles. Trying to figure out those cuts and stuff was incredible. And then this part, I wanted something that you don't see. I remember touring the Swedish Institute and seeing the staircases where they're just beautiful with the balusters and stuff. So I wanted to try to do something along that line, obviously not at that level. But I turned these walnut, is that a baluster? Is that what we would call that? I'm not certain. Turned those, got help from people that carved oak leaves in there. So, and I also did veneer work with look like leaves that are folded over, and got that railing constructed, which I'm very happy with. Now, if a future person comes in and buys this house and paints them white, I will come back and haunt them. This was a piece I built 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and I did this. I have a marquetry workshop in my basement, and first thing I started with was the marquetry board, and it has just a zillion little parts and pieces. I would work on it for a while and then just come walking up the steps going just because you're going nuts. So once I got this built, I thought, well, I really should have a box to put it in. And being the person that I am, I built this box. And I wanted to have ebony, where you see the black stuff, till I priced ebony. So I ended up just using maple and dyeing it black and adding black shellac to it until I got that appearance that I wanted. And then this, of course, is all veneer work. And then this is the perfect score for cribbage. And then the top, I wanted to have a hand of cards. I thought that would look cool. I've seen that someplace else. So I did that, and I don't know how many people said, well, why don't you use a face card here? And I'm going, think about it. Think of all the detail that's on a face card versus one of these cards. So, and then this was, I don't know what it's called because it's concave, convex, whatever the terms are. I had an extremely difficult time doing that. I had asked some people how to do it, and they told me that I couldn't do it. So I ended up being able to constructed it, put it in a vacuum bag, and use popsicle sticks all the way around here so I could get this part to compress. And I left these seams overlap one another, and then just did a fine cut on there and sanded and prayed and sanded, and they all turned out good. So I won some awards on this at one of the woodworking shows. I'm very proud of this piece. This was, I had a lot of time into it, and I won the very first game. I played my daughter, and I beat her. So I won the first game on this. Now we're in my basement. I used to do marquetry out in the workshop, but I found if I was doing a project, it just shut down my workshop, and I couldn't have my other equipment or do any other projects out there while I was doing the marquetry thing. So I moved that inside, and occasion to remodel this basement. So I was able to put in this workshop the way that I wanted it set up for marquetry. So I added all the cabinets. So I've got plenty of storage and whatnot, heated floor. I also do glass work is one of the other things that I also do. That's a work in progress, and you can see one of the finished ones. If the outdoor light would come in, that would make that, it's like a church. So if you see the light coming in during the day, you can see all the colors. At night, it just looks pretty bland. But on the marquetry stuff, this is one of the pieces that this was a practice piece for a project that I was doing. So you can see the marquetry stuff. This was my own design for the flowers and the leaves and the butterfly and everything. And then another with the marquetry club, the scroll saw moves too fast for me. I just can't get the hang of it. So I have one, but I rarely use it. I like this one. It's hand powered or foot powered, so I can sit with both hands running my pieces of veneer, and then I can run the foot power like an old treadle sewing machine. So I can go just as slow as I need to when I'm getting into hard spots, or you can saw faster as needed. This is just a wonderful tool. And then some of the other marquetry tools have for cutting off stuff. Cut strips. So if you're putting a border around something, you need strips, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, whatnot. You can just run the veneer on this like you're running a table saw. So that's a nice tool. And then I built this cart so they could wheel that around as needed. This is my great grandpa's toolbox, which in itself is nice to have. Plus, I still got some of the tools in the toolbox. And just one thing you might find interesting, and we'll show the price of inflation, but he was able to buy loop coping saw blades for 1.50 pennies each. So I don't know where you must have had to buy 2 blades to round it up to an even 3 cents. I don't know where you got the 1/2 cent from, but isn't that something? Another thing with the Yankee drill, all the bits come in a wooden little carrying case for the Yankee drill. That was the cordless drill of its day, I guess. So for those of you that do marquetry or have veneer, veneer storage is always tough. And I had them sitting in boxes and bags and whatever, stuff places. I finally got tired of it and constructed some big drawers, and I can hold all the veneer that I currently own in these drawers. And I've kind of got it sorted with the different colors, so I know I got lights in one and darks in another one and whatnot. And it makes it easy. The drawers are big enough that I can kind of look through there without having to take everything out and put it on the floor. And the drawers were so big, they started to sag real bad, so I ended up putting some steel to keep them straight. And I've got smaller ones over here with more veneer. You can never have enough veneer.
Hi, my name is Willie Willette. Welcome to my shop tour. I tend to call it a studio when clients are around, but we all know it's a shop. I've been in the business near 30 years. Graduated undergrad with a degree in English and philosophy, guaranteeing I would work with my hands until I die, and that part has come true. I had no inclination or plan to become a furniture maker. It kind of chose me more than I chose it. I had been doing museum work before that, which I really, really liked. I worked at the Walker for 6 years, and that was a fantastic experience. That's where I really learned a lot about my design aesthetic, especially being around people involved in similar pursuits. It was a great experience and worked with a lot of great people there. When I graduated, I wasn't quite certain what I was doing. I thought perhaps I'd end up at grad school for English, but the economy was terrible at that time. It was the second worst recession we've ever had. The last one was the worst, even worse than one I went through. So I just kept working construction like I had summers in high school and summers in college. And sort of my sort of break was to be at the Walker when it was too cold out to work, and heard construction sounds coming from the galleries and checked it out. And it was a bunch of artists pretending they were construction workers. So I scared the hell out of them the first week by literally going 3 or 4 times faster than they could. But it all worked out well. And that job brought some travel with it as well. We created the exhibits and then traveled them. So that was a really good experience. But doing hands-on work all day sort of led to an opportunity at the Children's Museum that we opened the new building. So we built a lot of the new exhibits when the building opened. So from there, I decided to go out on my own as a fabricator. And the market pretty much turned me into a furniture maker within the first couple of years. I thought I would do more work with artists and things like that, but really the bread and butter became furniture, and that's what it's been for almost 30 years now. This is one of my fortunate finds before everybody else wanted them. We've got fasteners and hand tools, and we've had the opportunity to do about 10 shoots here in 30 years, and this always seems to be where they end up. We even had a couple of fashion shoots here, and they kind of love this. So, all right, so we'll let's look at some other parts of the shop. All right, this is another part of the studio. Here you see the SCMI wide belt sander, also known as a time saver. It is one of those things that I do not remember what I did before I had it. Almost every board goes through there. It's a lifesaver. It would be even more handy for production work, but we don't really do production work. But it just allows us to have a
really fine product just to start with. Everything's cleaned up to 120. So final sandings and things like that are really just touch-ups. It's been really, really good. So this is probably one of my favorites, but not so much for the furniture work as for I've used it to do a lot of bronze work. Absolutely love bronze. Bring it into furniture when I can, and then with the leftovers, I like to make things. So these are both bronze, although one appears much more to be like copper, but that's just the heat lot. The heat lot's a little different, and they're both patina. But these were hammered on this anvil, which I got a long, long time ago when I first started the business. Twin City Machine was going out of business, and I helped a friend buy the building, and the guy who owned the building gave me a bunch of stuff, which was really kind of him. So he actually gave me this, and gave me the desk that's in the office as well for helping the deal come together. So I kind of like this. This is sort of your standard. We downsized about 2 years ago and got rid of our second drill press. It was a newer Delta, and nobody wanted to use it compared to this one. This one's pretty smooth. It's not quite as good as something like Clousing, and that's something I've always wanted, and I see them at the 3M sales, but it's hard to justify. So that's a tool I don't have that would have been nice. The bandsaw, because everything we do is one of a kind, sometimes we'll spend weeks on the drill press and or sometimes weeks on the bandsaw, just depending on what we're doing. This has not been a particularly good resaw bandsaw. It's been okay, so we don't do too much of that. And all furniture making, it tends to be linear. The wood wants straight lines. They don't want rounds. And so that also limits what we are able to do with the bandsaw. Yeah, say you can't have too many clamps. I would agree. These are the larger ones. And over here we've got the smaller ones. And just because we never know what we're going to be doing next, we don't know what kind of clamps we're going to be using, but I think it got pretty well covered. So this is a saw stop. I was an early subscriber to it. I'm pretty convinced you shouldn't own anything else. The average cost, I think the most important thing was I saw one being used, and there was a guy nearing retirement age. This is 25 years ago probably, and he said even if you took away the safety issue part of it, it's still the best saw I ever worked on. So in my mind it was like, well, why not? And for $600 or $800 more, I've had people who said, "Oh, what'd you buy that for?" I said, "Do you think a Pinky's worth $800? Because I kind of do." So I like the saw stop. It is a really good saw regardless of the safety feature. I don't think we've had anybody get cut on it. We have set it off, of course. One, I'm sure it was because of dampness. Another one, somebody didn't know that the plexi could conduct electricity. Thank goodness we haven't had any accidents per se. And I tell all the new people too, you got to treat this like it's going to ruin your day. You do not want to be the first person to have the safety system fail. Even though there's bragging rights to that, I guess I'd prefer not to be part of that. And then this is the stress reliever. When I tend to do that rather than yell at people. So this may be my favorite tool. It's a Felder XY mortiser. We use this, we got involved in a project about 7 years ago called the Minneapolis Good Chair Project, where I designed and built benches for public use through a private funder. And those would be very hard to construct without something like this. I know the domino is very popular and for good reason, but as far as production work goes, this is the real workhorse. So between the dining chairs and benches, pretty much any seating, this really can be dialed in really well and can make for some really nice tight joints. Probably, I guess that's why I like this. So I mentioned how we use a lot of tools depending on job. We had one large carving job that led to all of this. We haven't had one since, but I've got this great carving collection now that I don't really use, but we had a need and everything worked out really well. And this leather sewing machine is similar. It doesn't get a lot of use, but when we really need it, it's nice to have. And even when we don't need it, the staff really like the hobby aspect of being able to make things on their own time. So in a sense, that makes it a very valuable tool. The staff likes it. I have been very happy with the Makita chop saw / miter saw. Tim at Total Tools, I was ready to put some money down on a Felder, and he said, "You want to save some money? Get the Makita. It's very close to being just as good for a lot less money." He's absolutely right. From that first generation little Makita that everybody had for a long time, this is, that's another world. I can rely on it without checking too much to be absolutely true. It holds the 90 degrees. We use this a lot, especially when we're doing stretchers. We build stretchers for a friend. And then over here, this is all the scrap left over for making cutting boards. Hopefully we'll be doing some classes this winter. Try to chew up some of this. We've also, I say we a lot, it's my business, but I've had a lot of really loyal long-term employees. So it's always felt like a we. This is something that we just started putting on Facebook. The small problem with this is you have to buy dedicated material, but the difference between this and just a bunch of slabs is tremendous. I don't know why we're selling these, and I can't believe we don't sell out, because I just think they're head and shoulders above anything else. And here's the important calendar where I put all the important dates down for the whole year. Oh, I guess the state fair is the only important date, so. Just kidding, the grandkids' birthdays too, but that's the biggie. This is the small office intended to be desk-free, but of course it's not. Spend a surprising amount of time doing email work with clients. Maybe an hour out of every day, surprisingly. I didn't think it would ever chew up that much time. This is the desk, the nice standing desk that I got from that same business owner that I'm really happy with. And of course here we got the small kitchen stuff and things, and this is hopefully my new motto, but I'm not very good at that. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and call me. My number's easy to find. If you have any questions about what we do or how we do it, or about tool selection, wood selection, anything like that, feel free to give me a call. Thanks for the tour.